are here in 2016, almost 5 years later. That is definitely my new record for procrastination. So instead of the manga I promised I'd be doing way back when, I'm going to start up a new series. Novellas, specifically The Devil is a Part-Timer, or Hataraku Mao-sama. In Japanese, I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that right. I'm really getting into the light novel series lately, and they're getting really popular in Japan. I don't know if anybody actually calls them novellas. That's what I first heard when I first started reading these light novels, so I'm going to continue to call it novellas because that sounds cool. So, The Devil is a Part-Timer. If you didn't see the series when it came out or when it was on Netflix, or if you watched it on Netflix and didn't realize that you could put the subs in to listen to all the Italian and the English dub, the novellas are pretty much on key for the first two, for the 13 episodes, I believe, that there is of the Devil is a Part-Timer series. Now, my first had hesitations when I heard this series because Devil Part-Timer, that sounds dumb. This series is absolutely hilarious, and especially the English anime for it. They just add stuff in there that wasn't in the Japanese dub. So funny. Like, there was this one scene where the Devil King had picked up the hero after she had been getting tortured, and I asked her if she had any permanent brain damage, and she goes, "I love you, Devil King," or something to that extent. He goes, "Yep." So that's kind of the funny things on this, but the novellas are really on key on that, so if you hadn't seen the show, I'm going to go over a little bit of that on this here. So, the Devil, or King Satan, as he was known in Ente Isla, the dimension from which the hero and such come from. So, King Satan, who had taken over Ente Isla, pretty much raining death and destruction around the world, is defeated by the hero, who we don't find out at first because we've got a big surprise reveal once we see her in the other dimension. He gets defeated and retreats back into a different dimension to escape with his General Alciel. So where they end up in modern day Japan, they've been stripped of all their magical powers and have now taken the form of pretty much helpless humans. And they're injured and ragged, and they're wearing funny clothes, and of course they get picked up by the Japanese police pretty quickly. So the Devil King, he only has a little bit of magic left, and he hypnotizes the police into letting him go, registers as a citizen of Japan, and after some part-time job failures and a really cruddy apartment, gets a position as a part-time worker in McDonald's. Of course, everybody knows that's their non-copyright way of saying McDonald's, which, you know, is funny by itself. But King Satan, who now goes by Mao, which is Japanese for the devil, he still aspires to be ruler of the world, or at least that's what he tells everybody. Where he happens to run into on the street the hero Amelia, who's working as a part-time call center girl in a customer service area, specifically in complaints. So, you know, the hardest job in customer service, if you've ever had to work customer service. So her lifelong goal is to kill him, and proceeds to take out a pocket knife and tries to stab him when they're again picked up by the police. Police think that they're a couple having a lover's spat and proceed to let them go, much to the disdain of the hero, who is legitimately trying to kill him at that point. However, after watching Mao, the Devil King, and how he goes about his life, she decides not to kill him right now because she's very conflicted, because even though he was the Devil King, caused death and destruction across her land, here in Japan, he's the, as she put it, ideal McDonald's employee. Take that as a compliment or an insult, as you will. And so the hero Amelia goes back to their apartment, encountering both him and Alciel, and they have a really funny scene on that. The pacing between the book and the anime is a bit different. The book, or novella, takes about a 3-day period. The series, however, is a bit, has a bit more filler and has a bit more fan service. And if you know me, I'm not that big of a fan service, not just because I'm a girl, but it really takes away from shows nowadays, as how I feel about that. But it's not too bad in this series for that. But then back to the novella. So basically they're calling a truce on this matter, and Amelia is continuing to stalk the Devil King, and even she admits that she's a bit of a stalker, but she does it anyways, and sees him go about his daily routine pretty much as any other part-time employee of a McDonald's they describe him as a slacker. I guess if you don't have a will to get a second job or do anything else, you could be considered a slacker in that regards. I think they're being a little bit too hard on that in that regard. And in this portion, we're introduced to Mao's love interest, Chiho, which is his little 16-year-old teenage co-worker in the McDonald's, which he had helped train. So there's a little bit of jealousy going on. She really has a hard crush on Mao at this point. But she does end up becoming a more important character as the series goes on. So Amelia shows up at Mao's workplace and calls him out after work, which they get out late at night. They meet on the street, and she propositions him that if he is just happy being what he is as a part-time McDonald's employee on Japan Earth, that she essentially wouldn't try to kill him again. But Mao exposes his very, the main character of a series. I'm going to do this, it's an impossible plan. He's going to take over the world by going up and becoming a full-time employee in McDonald's, but he still has ambition to take over the world and ente Isla. So it looks like they're about to fight again when Mao's bike tire explodes, and he has a good little cry over that. Amelia feels sorry for them, and then they proceed to get a sniper bullets rained on them from an unknown assailant. So they end up ditching and running to the train station, which honestly was a dumb idea if they didn't want to get civilian casualties, but it ends up working and the assailant goes away for that time being. Now this becomes important because Amelia, in the confusion, drops her wallet, and we later find out that the assailant picks up the wallet and figures out where she works from that. But because of that, she lives too far away to walk home at night and is forced to spend the night in the Devil's Castle, much to her, again, disdain. I like the good little bit they threw in there about how she and Alciel, Ashia, at this point he's calling himself, or use the same detergent on their towels, and Mouse goes, yeah, but he doesn't let us use softener. And so she eventually leaves in the morning, but the night that happened, Chiho text messages Mao that she believes that earthquakes are going to be coming, and essentially invite him out on a date to talk about why she believes the earthquakes are going to be coming. So at that point, he gets dolled up by Ashia in order to go on this date on the tiny little big-breasted teenage character, and they go into an underground cafe. In the meantime, there's been all these earthquakes that have been happening in localized areas in Japan, and they didn't really give too much thought on it until they had come down to the scene in which Chiho is expositing that she believes that there's going to be bigger earthquakes, and at this point Ashia is coming around and stalking them. There's a lot of stalking in this series. It just adds to the humor value of it. When the hero Amelia catches Ashia stalking Mao, who's on a date with Chiho in the underground cafe. So of course Amelia is not going to stand for this. She comes and confronts them, and they have a nice little spat in the underground cafe when all hell breaks loose and the earthquake comes and they're pretty much buried alive. So it turns out that the fear and despair the people felt while this incident was occurring is what Mao feeds off of and gains pretty much half of his devil form. But what he does is he uses that form in order to save the people of the underground and just loses all the power he had just gained in order to save everyone's life. Amelia, again, this is the horrible demon, killed her father. responsible for all of that. She even has a part where she considers killing him when his back is turned to her, and that, but realize it not only kill her, it also kill everyone down below in this disaster. So they eventually leave. Mao loses all his powers again and hints at that he knows who the assailant is, but doesn't actually say who it is to Amelia, and they go on their way. And Amelia has a nice little bit where she has with her Japanese friend who takes care of her after the disaster. Now, one little bit on that we find out from Chiho's side is that her father turns out to be the police officer who had originally taken Mao in when he was found injured on the street, and he thinks that that has caused her to become more linked to the thing, because she was revealed in their talk on their date that she had heard a voice telling her that there was going to be a earthquake in the area, and they call that an idea link. And I really like this idea of the idea link. It explains how they speak Japanese so well and why Amelia is so good at her customer service job, because she just kind of can talk to people and they can feel her instead of actually speaking their language, which that's absolutely adorable. I wish I'd had that in real life. So Amelia shows up to the Devil's Castle, their cruddy little apartment, the next day to pretty much, figure out what's going on with that. In the meantime of it, she falls down the stairs. She gets pretty banged up, even more banged up than what she was before when the place collapsed and she was saved. And Ashia goes out to pick up some gauze and stuff to help her out. So she's alone in the Devil's Castle apartment with Mao when she just kind of breaks down and, gives, I think, a really nice way to exposit her backstory as to her motivations for becoming the hero and how she became the hero, even though there are a lot of details missing that we sort of skim on later on in the series. I'm only on book 4 right now. As far as I know, that's all the English ones that have been translated yet. And I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to wait until they get translated into English and then purchase them, as I've purchased all of my books here. So she pretty much breaks down asking Mao, if you're such this nice, kind person, why were you the horrible Devil King in Ente Isla, and why do you still want to conquer the world? And Mao can only say, well, he didn't understand humans that well, and that he actually apologizes. But before they can go further on that, Ashia comes back with Chiho in tow, who happens to see her while he's out getting the gauze. And she walks into a scene with a crying Amelia, her shirt a little open, and Mao wasn't wearing any pants at the time, so I think it was very right of her to jump to the wrong conclusion, freak out, and run away. So while they're deciding what to do about the Chiho girl that had bolted off, the landlord lady, who's still a mystery to me, I said I'm only on the 4th book, they haven't explained her, but she's clearly not human, besides being a big drama queen. Big drama queen. Pretty much tells them in very lucid content that she knows what they are and that Chiho just ran into danger. Which we skip over to Chiho, who just ran into a purple-haired, long-haired kid who's very, very short. And it turns out he is Lucifer. It's, Lucifer is a character, and then Satan's a character. Now, they actually explain this in book 3, why exactly these characters like that, but I was very confused when I was first watching the series as to why Lucifer and King Satan were different characters. But again, that's a bit of a spoiler. So Lucifer, turns out that he had also figured out that fear and despair is what he could feed on in the human world in order to get his powers back. So he and another person had been going around mugging people and robbing stores at night in order to build up the fear and despair that he had, and realized just how upset Chiho was and that she'd be a very good battery. So Mao and Emilia and Ashia run to the scene where Chiho was, because there was a bit of an explosion there, and they find Lucifer in his fallen angel form along with Chiho. And we had this great little bit where King Satan Mao had actually figured out the entire plot of the High Priest Olba that had originally been a companion to the hero, that had set this whole thing up and pretty much saved Lucifer after Emilia had thought she had killed him. And now, to protect their political power in the church, they were trying to kill both Emilia and King Satan so that they can retain their power and turn her into either a martyr or whatever they wanted to do to keep their power. So Mao, not really having his powers back, is helpless when Lucifer snipes Ashia, and Ashia falls. They have to run. They kind of distract the bad guys a bit. They run around a little, and eventually Mao is hit so many times, even shot by Olba, because Olba's running around with a gun because he's trying to preserve his holy power, and a big hole in his chest. Though I love the art in here, it's not quite as big a hole in the anime. The anime was a little bit unbelievable. I mean, where's your spine, dude? Thinking he's dead, Lucifer figures he's going to cover this all up and have a giant explosion and make it like a terrorist attack and, destroy the witnesses on it. In the meantime, he drops Chiho. Emilia catches her, pretty much breaking her legs. Yeah, that was a great noise in the anime. And Emilia pretty much covers herself with Chiho, waiting for death. And when it doesn't happen, looks up and the bridge is floating. King Satan has come back after eating on the despair of all the people around him. Pretty much his plan was to get killed. He predicted Lucifer wasn't going to straight up just kill the hero, that he was going to do something flashy. And his reasoning is great. His reasoning is, well, I heard that your brain has some activity even after your heart stops for a few minutes. So that apparently worked out for him. That's terrifying if you really think about it too much, though. So they have a really good fight, a little bit of exposition. In the end, Ashia, he's rezzed, he gets some power from Mao. And they pretty much do a nonchalant team-up, even though they really didn't want to, beating down Lucifer and Olba the High Priest. And in the meantime, Emilia's other two companions who had been imprisoned by the church showed up, Emeralda and Alberta, I think it was something like that, Albertia, to find that Mao's reverted back to his human form because he's used up a lot of power after kicking the crud out of Lucifer. And they're like, no, we're not here to fight you, we're just here to pick up Emilia. He's like, okay, dudes, well, you just guys go head on to my apartment, I'm going to fix up things here. And he ends up draining the last of the power of Lucifer and Ashia, or Alciel, in order to fix everybody and fix everyone's memories. And then they pop back over to the apartment, they do a little exposition on how the church has been running this conspiracy in order to bring back their power. So pretty much they say, look, Mao, King Satan, you're not doing that much here. We're going to let you go this time. If you pull anything, whatever. And Emilia decides to stay. And we also find out that Emilia's mother, an archangel, gave her a feather to where she can come back home anytime she wants to, though as far as I know, she's never actually used it. It hasn't popped up yet in the series that I'm currently up to in this point with the novellas. And we get a little thing where Mao tells Chiho that if she wants, he can erase her memories of the bad experience. And of course she's going to pout. She's really in like with him. I'm going to call it in like at this point. That she stops talking to him for about 2 months because of that. And that ends the first novella, and it's about halfway through the series on the anime. And it's a really good point I love the introductions of all these characters. The writing's pretty solid, even though you are getting it translated from Japanese into English. There's a tiny bit of localizations, not really much you can count on. But the whole point is not only the absurdity of all these situations with these characters in these situations, it's how funny it is, how they come off. I mean, maybe Mao's a little bit too tongue-in-cheek. He's acting like he's been a Japanese person all his life. But it just flows so well. I think the writing in it, for what it is pretty strong to these points on these characterizations, and it's certainly something that I would recommend to someone who likes Japanese culture or likes, light novels. I'm pretty sure that these are a bunch of the novels stuck into one. It kind of reads like that because it's got different sections. I don't know much about that. I probably should be doing a bit more research on it, but definitely in terms of light novels, it's wonderful, even though it is the devil is a part-timer. So definitely something I'd recommend. Well, there's only one thing to do about this. It's morphin' time!